Janine, I want to say welcome to Master Your Metabolism, where we talk about changing our relationship with food to transform our lives. And it's just so fantastic, not just having you on board, but to also to be able to share your story, because you've got a very special story about changing your relationship with food and managing your energy. As we'll see later, you live a very, very high energy lifestyle. And it's so important to fuel our bodies correctly. So, but before we go there about the transformation and how you experience that, tell us a little bit more about yourself, about Janine, the person, and the person before we started getting involved with the 16 Hours for Life program.
So when I met Sean, my first words to him was, I am not your typical client.
Yeah.
So I'm one of those girls who have always been classified as slim, ever. I've always had an easy relationship with food, and lucky because I'm quite busy. My life revolves around my two dogs, a little border collie and a German shepherd, and horses, which means that we are seriously active by nature. My baseline is about a 5 kilometer walk every day and about an hour on a horse. So food and body shape has never really been something I had to think about. But all of us at some stage suffer the fate of age, and females of a certain age, our bodies suddenly revolt, and nothing that used to work works anymore. Hormones and funny things come along, and suddenly you feel like an alien in your own body. What that translated to, I suppose, in statistics was a weight gain of about 5 kilos, a typical middle-age spread. And it's just irritating. I like to move, I like to run. My sport is measured in seconds. So suddenly that extra softness is irritating. And yeah, so what I've also and through your life, you keep yourself thin, you keep yourself fit, but I never had the opportunity to really learn about the body. How does the metabolism work? How does the timing work? And so when I heard Sean's story, I immediately thought, whoa, I need to know more. And yeah, well, we are 12 weeks later, and wow, what a journey.
Awesome. Yeah. And I can't wait to hear your views on the journey, a bit more information about that. But talk to us about how you were feeling your body typically before we started on this metabolic journey.
Okay, I'm a sugar girl. Hello, I'm Janine and I'm an addict. I love sugar. All the way. What tends to happen, because I'm not a big eater, I get through my day, run, do the horses, do the dogs, get home at 7, and suddenly I am dead tired. And food is the last thing I want to think about. So my go-to would be something like nachos and cheese, or just something quick and easy, high carb, just so that I don't have to think about planning food and just get something in my stomach and go on, and be able to rest. I realized eight years ago with long distance horse riding that carb fueling was not working. So I learned at that stage to, before races, I would go over to a more protein-based diet, but it wasn't a lifestyle, and it was a constant up and down. So I'd be good for the race for 2 or 3 weeks, get everything going, be fine, and then fall back into my carb high diet. And obviously with the high carbs, training is not as efficient as it can be because you're not powered for that training. And then also with the hormones and the sugar, you get all those things that happens at this age. It is menopausal. So you start dealing with it, brain fog, you start dealing with the flashes every now and then. So yeah, typical high sugar diet. And because I've always done that, I've literally always run like that. Protein to me is almost difficult. It's almost like there's a resistance to working with protein. So I had to relearn my whole relationship with protein and what it can do for my body.
Yeah. Fascinating. And we've always been told that we need to carb load when we want to feel our body, specifically when we are expecting high energy output. And you alluded to that earlier, to saying that carbohydrate and carbohydrate fueling didn't work for you. Explain a bit more about that. How did it negatively impact your performance?
So carb fueling was fine for low level intensity workouts. So when I started riding endurance, where you're riding an 80-kilometer race, fair enough, you split it in 3 sections. So you ride 20 kilometers, and 40 kilometers, and you spend on 40 kilometers, you can spend anything about 2.5 to 3 hours in one stretch. So we don't really have access to water during that time because you're riding, and you need to be pre-fueled for the whole ride, because even in between the races, you don't really have time to eat, and you do not want to ride on a full stomach. So what happened in some of my earlier rides that, ironically, I dehydrated. And that's something I've since learned, that protein runs a different water system in your body. So so you would carb fuel the week before the ride, everything would be fine. And after your first lap of 40, you would be completely empty on carbs. That left you having to now eat between rides, which is not pleasant. You can't fuel yourself really enough. So loop 2 and 3, you are tired and you are extremely thirsty. And again, you can't down a liter or 2 of water between your rides because you don't want to do a bathroom break, and it's really uncomfortable riding with water
and
in your stomach.
it feels so heavy, right? And being on to drink such a lot of fluid, because you're on horseback. It's not like riding a mountain bike or something where you can stash water for yourself. I mean, you're in a very dynamic environment, and having water sloshing around or trying to put water on and carry water is just not possible.
No, and you find yourself being tempted at some of the stops to drink the farm water, which is horrific, because that ends you with a tummy ache before the end of the race. So, so it was interesting that the carb fueling and the water system is very difficult when you are doing long distance work, whether it's just riding, practicing out long distance, or whether you're actually competing long distance. Carb fueling ended up not being the way to go.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. And the next place I want to go to is, was there a specific moment that you can think about? You mentioned a bit earlier that we met at a BNI meeting, which was great for us to have hooked up there. But was there a specific time where you thought that there must be a different way of relating to food, to fueling your body, outside of that particular meeting we had?
Funny enough, I think the universe planned it. Since December, when we all on holiday and we binge watch Netflix and all these funny things, I accidentally found a few programs about fueling and about eating for health and about managing your health with the input of food, especially things like diabetes and cholesterol, and how you can actually manage that with food. So those seeds were already planted in December, watching a few programs. And ironically, by the time I met you, which was mid-January, maybe, closer to beginning of Feb, I had already been on a diet, for lack of a better word, trying to move some of the weight that I have gained. At that stage, I was at 60 kilos. And yes, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm quite slight of build. And I was roughly about 5 kilos over my preferred training weight at that stage, which makes quite a bit of a difference when you actually out training. So when I met you, I'd been a good girl and battled my way through probably about half of that already. And I'm saying battling because it was really a mind thing of having to, okay, I can't have that, I can't have this. A very old school way, almost going vegetarian in a desperate attempt to shift this weight. And so I was really at a point where I'm thinking there has to be a better way. I had started learning these things, new ways of eating. I thought going vegetarian would actually be a very quick way to do it. And my body just said, nope, We're not doing that. And it was an absolute battle. So yes, I was definitely thinking at that stage, there has to be a better way.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, even though I'm not fond of protein, I find it difficult to eat. I realized that being vegetarian was not the way. I still needed to fuel this body, and I didn't know enough about vegetarian protein. Not that it's a bad thing, but I did not know enough about it to actually survive on that. So yes, I, funny enough, was ready to learn a better way. You know, as a young girl, it was very easy. You want to lose 2 kgs? Don't eat chocolate for a week. And it worked.
Sure.
It doesn't work at 48.
Yeah. And just to echo what you are saying about how difficult it is to work on one's body composition, if we can call it that, even if one lives an active life like you do, you know, you are constantly on the move, horse riding, competitive horse riding, doing competitive work with your dogs. You know, it is a very, very busy lifestyle that you lead. And even so, if one doesn't eat correctly, and we can get into what correctly means, it's a different meaning for each person that one would want to speak to. If one doesn't eat correctly and get your nutrition dialed in, how difficult it is to lose weight or change your body composition, even if you have such a very, very, very high energy lifestyle. Amazing. Yeah. So I would like to go to the program and your journey with the program. Can you remember, thinking back, what it was like starting off doing things like meal tracking in the first couple of weeks? I mean, the program really asked us to be conscious of what we are eating, and then also be, let's call it, self-accountable by looking at the meals that we do track and looking at our macronutrients, and then adapting the way that we would eat normally according to that. What was how did that impact on the way that you viewed food and changed your relationship with food?
So the first week or so, I'm not going to lie, you kind of get frustrated about having to have the phone in the food, you know. So that was a little bit of an adjustment. I'm not big on tech, so so having to link my phone to food was a bit of a I had to adapt to that. But the chronometer that we use is so easy. I love the fact that when you find a food, like go to Woolies and it's not on the chronometer, yes, you just scan the barcode, pop it in, and voila, it's there. So once the tech and I became friends, I realized it is so easy to work with, and the things you see and the things you learn. I'm quite analytical, and I always try and find a cheat. I'm going to be honest about it. I always need to know there's a cheat.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that I could compare foods. Suddenly on my phone, if I was in the shop, I could scan a barcode on this product or scan a barcode on that product and see how they compare. Obviously, you start realizing you can barely shop anymore. Fresh food and meat aisle is round about where you're going to be shopping.
Yeah.
But the using the chronometer actually opened my eyes to what is in food, and that everything actually has carbs, and it's made me quite knowledgeable and quite aware of where carbs are hiding in my diet. And so I don't even want to call this ends up not being a diet. It ends up educating you about what is in food and what is hidden in food. So you get to a point where you're saying it's not, okay, I'm restricting what I'm eating. I'm just deciding I don't want to eat that. It's not that I'm not allowed to eat that. I can have whatever I want. But really, do I want to put that in my body with all the hidden thingies? So what I liked about the program is it started making me think about food. It started educating me about food. And then as you go along, it starts educating you on what that food does. You get to a point, it's not, you have to do this. It tells you, how do you feel after you had that meal? So the chronometer gives it to you in black and white and in figures and the science behind it. But you can compare that very quickly to how I'm feeling. So yes, the program says the meal was right or wrong, but how do I feel about it afterwards? Am I still hungry after I've had that? Am I hungry an hour or two later? Do I want a snack? Because grazing is a thing of mine. I used to graze basically the whole day. So if I've had a meal and an hour later I don't want to graze, that's a light bulb moment for me to say, okay, so what I ate was correct. My body is happy. I enjoyed the meal and I don't have the need to go and find anything else.
Yeah.
And that I really liked. I like the fact that you learn from the skills, but that the skills are very easy or very easily translates itself into your life to a point that you're not locked to your phone. I don't need my phone to decide what I'm going to eat. Even now, I can plan my whole day's food, knowing how every meal makes me feel. And if I feel happy and satisfied after a meal, then I don't need to go look for anything odd or weird or whatever.
Oh,
So that's what I like.
yeah.
It's not you have to do this. You actually regulate this whole process about how you're feeling. And that was nice because then you can stick to it.
Yes. And you make such a very, very important point that in the beginning, I mean, changing habits is difficult, specifically when it comes to food. And in the beginning, it is, I mean, I say to people, look, you're going to get frustrated. It is a bit of a pain in the behind to get into this thing of finding the food that you are eating on a database and then, entering the food and comparing it to our targets and so forth. But in the weeks that follow, it gets easier to do so. But you're making a very, very good point. And that it starts getting you into a space where when you start lowering your carbohydrate intake, you can actually start feeling what your body feels when you eat certain foods. And that's something that's not there when one is constantly eating carbohydrates. Your body just is, it's as if your body goes numb to what you're putting into your body. And now when you actually start dropping the carbohydrates, you actually feel it when you put more carbohydrates. You eat clean, if I can call it that, clean for a couple of days, week, 2 weeks initially. And then, my goodness, something happens and you go more carbs than what is required, right? And then your body just gives you this feedback. I don't think I like this. For most majority of us, we get that feedback loop all of a sudden, and what we are doing is working. And wonderful that you state that at some stage one stops using a tool like chronometer to constantly monitor what we are eating, but based on our food experience and our body experience, we start making the right choices, because this is a lifelong commitment to be healthier, right? And tell me about carbohydrates, and how difficult was it for you to actually start diminishing your carbohydrate intake? Because remember, on the program, we're not a big fan of carbohydrates. We actually go very low on carbohydrates. How difficult was that for you to actually do?
Actually, not that bad. And I really thought it would be a problem. My biggest fear was that somewhere along the line, you're going to say cold turkey and you're going to take my carb intake and you're going to say 0, which you didn't. So thank you. Sure. What I liked is the system or the program works in increments. So the first week you just watch, and then you start, only week 2 or 3, you start fiddling with it. You learn to feel. So what I found with carbs, like all carbs are not created equal. That I learned.
Yeah.
And for me, I roughly put them in 3 classes: chocolate and sugar, which is highly processed sugar, which is my favorite. Then sugar carb in the form of fruit and veg, mostly fruit for me. I'm a big veg person. And then carb in the form of pasta and bread, which I didn't do, but then for me it would be a biscuit,
like a rusk type.
Gluten and rusk or gluten, something like that. Yeah. And the biggest thing that helped me to control carbs was, so I had the information. I had my list of green, orange, and red, which gave me a mental plan of what is good for me and what is not good for me. But again, I like to cheat. So I ended up having to feel what each carb did for me. So if I cheated with a chocolate, tomorrow morning, you can physically see it, or I could physically see it on my body, where you might have had a very flat tummy the day when you had a good day and you didn't go over the carbs, or you didn't eat a wrong carb. On a chocolate day, it was really squishy tummy day. I then found out also that baked goods like biscuits or rusk really upset my tummy. So that would create a very big bloated tummy, which was very easy you can't miss that. You would know that was because of that. And then I found that if I really felt that I needed to more carbs in my life, if I stuck to fruit, to fresh fruit, the total effect on my body was a lot less. So I learned that when I needed a carb boost, to choose the best carb for me. And for me, that was fruit, which would have the least impact. It would be the highest effect. I'm happy. I'm having my carb. I'm having my fruit smoothie. So, and I'm even being a little bit naughty because I can have cream with that, which was, to me, was like squeezing cream was like, whoa, it's such a cheat, but it wasn't a cheat. So once I figured out what each carb did, it didn't become, you may not eat chocolate. I may eat chocolate. You're going to be squishy tomorrow morning. I may have a biscuit. I'm going to have a tummy ache tomorrow morning. Or have the fruit. Yes, my figures are not exactly what I wanted for the day, but my body is happy and I'm not having any adverse effect. So the moment I figured that out, the carb management became almost a non-issue, because again, it's not what I can't have, it's what I would prefer to have.
Yes.
That's how my relationship with the carbs changed.
Yeah, wonderful. And it really is a journey to figure out what works as part of one's lifestyle, also what works as part of what your body wants and needs. Most certainly, we've got very specific parameters around macronutrients that we recommend. But each and every person goes through this process of being conscious of what they are eating, and at the same time, figuring out what works for them, which is really cool. And that is what I'm hearing from you, that you are saying, is that I like this idea of cheating your way through the program, because that cheating actually, no, but that's great, because that cheating is actually making this process work for you, which is so important, because this needs to be a sustainable change. This is not a 12-week crash course, and after the 12 weeks, we just go back to doing what we did in the past. This literally is a boot camp to show us this is what needs to be done. Find your way of engaging healthily with foods and what works for your body, and then finding a way to keep it sustainable. We talk about sustainability a lot. Very, very, very important.
This really was the first time in my life that I could actually listen to my body, which I found very interesting, because before you have dips and highs and all these funny things that carbs do. And I really found it interesting that my body could now talk to me, that I could have a very direct cause and effect of what I ate. And
Amazing.
that was new. And I really, really enjoyed that, because now for the first time, you could truly know what works and what doesn't, because there's no other interference. And that's nice, because that's something I can take for the rest of my life without measuring or whatever. You will just feel this worked or this didn't work. And obviously you can go according to. So if you're sitting in that restaurant and it's got that lovely little pita bread, you're going to know you can have it. You're going to pay for it, but you can have it. And then you also kind of think, do I really need it? Yeah, we'll have one tiny little bit. We won't have the whole thing, which is nice for going forward, because you can't go through life not having pita bread ever again. But I like the fact that I now know what different foods do to me. And that's an informed decision going forward. And then it doesn't feel like someone said, Sean said I can't have bread. It's not Sean that said I can't have bread. My tummy said, nope, we can't have bread.
Yeah. Another important point that you're making is that people tend to think that you need to, when we say, okay, cut carbohydrates, you absolutely can't have that piece of cake when you're celebrating somebody being christened. Or you can't have a pizza or a slice of pizza or 2 or 3 or 4 slices of pizza ever again in your life. For me, that's carrot cake. I absolutely love carrot cake and proper carrot cake. There's a there's a place in Saldanha that makes the best carrot cake. So I'll go to Saldanha to have my carrot cake. It's a great celebration. But we learn what our body can actually tolerate. And that's different for each and every person. And finding that out for ourselves is, I think, is something that we really need to do. If we take our health seriously, we need to look for that feedback mechanism that tells us our body can tolerate this or it can't tolerate this. But it's incumbent on us to actually go on that journey to make that happen. And speaking of this journey, the program is 12 weeks long. That's 3 months. As a matter of fact, it's 88 days of commitment. And a lot of people go, there's just no way on this planet that I can actually spend so much time trying to change my habits, especially around food, which we know is difficult. What kept you motivated through this process? What actually got you there where you said week in and week out, you are going to do this? And you were brilliant at this. I might just share with everybody. You most certainly engaged. You were extremely curious. And as you were saying, you were most certainly experimenting a lot. Let's say not cheat, but you were experimenting with your body, which was fantastic. What kept you motivated? What kept you, I'm in this and I'm definitely going week for week for 12 weeks?
So traditionally, when people want to lose weight, it goes well while they're losing weight because they're seeing a result. And then when they stagnate, they become despondent and they most probably fall off the wagon. So our situation here was a lot different. We had very little weight to play with, and we wanted to do a whole lot of changing the body composition. So in the beginning, you learn the process, and then it's easy because, the first few days, everybody's like, oh, riled up, we're going to do this. But I found because it constantly changed, because first we learned, then we started with the carbs, then eventually we moved on to the intermittent fasting. I was constantly getting feedback. So either learning something new or finding something out about my body. And that to me was like losing weight if you have to lose a lot of weight. So I was constantly getting a positive reaction to what I was doing. It wasn't always on my body. Sometimes it was mentally. And that helped to keep me going. And there were bad days. You know yourself, there were days that I didn't track. And that, I think, is where the mental thing comes in. Because mentally you get tired at some stage. And you need to, that's the one you need to work through, to say, like, this is not a punishment. This is not, I don't know, this is, it's not these rules. I have to do this. You want to do this. So I figured what kept me going was to say, on the days when I really couldn't mentally manage it, I gave myself a break. I didn't then go buy a pizza and a cream cake. I tried to stay on what I knew was right, but without putting myself under the pressure of having to measure it. And that happened probably 3 or 4 times. And the fact that I was gentle on myself in those days really helped to keep it on. Because if in those days, if you then now start beating yourself up and saying, I can't do this, and I have, I'm not good enough, that's really detrimental to the process. And in those days, I also like to think about the fact that, and a lot of those days was also competition days. Because when there's so much on you competition-wise, I really can't think about food. And those days, it was nice to reflect, to say, but, you're running comfortably, you're sprinting and recovering quickly, you're able to do the whole day's worth of this. These competition days are 20 to 30,000 steps a day, and we do 3 in a row. So they're hectic days. So it was really nice to, on those days when you're feeling low in motivation to do the food thing, to start thinking, but you walked 5Ks this morning, and it's not an issue. You're not sore, you're not tired. You've done a competition and you had great times. So I really think one has to, in those difficult times, you kind of have to focus around the other things and just step back a little bit from that whole focusing on the food and focusing on why you're doing this, why you want to do this. Are there health benefits? You know, if you have diabetes or the nasty ones, you really need to stand back and say, you know what, I've improved my health, my sugar's good, my cholesterol's good. I've and just kind of be kind for yourself for that day, because it's not always easy.
Yeah.
And 2 days later, you'll lose weight more again, or measure your centimeters, and their centimeters are gone. And trust me, there's nothing nicer than that to get you back on program.
Yeah,
when you
absolutely. The positive results. And yeah, speaking of positive results, and also working through the ups and downs of any type of program that's going to help you to try and change your habits. You know, we talk about for long-term sustainability, most people getting onto the program actually have more work to do than their 12 weeks to get to what their goal is, whether what type of body composition are we talking about. It could be losing weight, it can be anything, it could be any metabolic disease state they want to get rid of. It takes a long time, and we talk about not fixating on a goal, not measuring yourself against that goal on a daily basis, because that makes things really a struggle. You know, if you imagine somebody having 30 kilograms to lose, and today is the day that I had my little pita bread, and you go, oh, I'll never get to my goal, which is 30 kilograms away. It just becomes so demoralizing, where we say, you know what, we just do things on a day-to-day basis. Some days are better than others. We use our goal to give us direction as to where we want to go. But today is today, and we do our best today. Tomorrow is another day. And if today went well, we celebrate. If today didn't go that well, we go learning experience. Tomorrow is another day, just to get that compassion for ourselves going and take the pressure off, because this is a long-term commitment, being healthy. And also through your journey, very much the same as everybody else going through this journey, there's ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. Some weeks you actually do everything perfectly, but you're not moving closer to your goal if we are measuring on the scale, we are measuring centimeters, or however we measure. And then we tend to go, oh my goodness, I'm never going to get there. But if we do things day to day, it takes the pressure off, which is important, right? Taking the pressure off.
I really hope that the other what would we call them? I don't want to call them users. The other people following the program, I really hope that they also mentally experience what I did, with the enlightenment of what you're learning and the feeling of what you're learning about your body, because that to me has been so wow. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I've taken away from this, is to actually have reconnected with my body. And I really wish it on absolutely everybody, because then sticking to it doesn't become hard.
Yeah.
Because then you're not sticking to a program, you're just listening to your body. And yeah, then it's not Sean says I can't. Then it's just purely my body doesn't like that. So let's just not do that.
Yeah, it's I say I'm going to manage my body in a way that serves me. It's a whole different message. Absolutely.
And it's a lot easier to follow that message and to listen to that narrative than it is to say, Sean says I can't have a chocolate.
Sure, absolutely.
For Sean, you're the bad one.
Because Janine, knowing you are going to rebel immediately and have that chocolate. If I had to say you can't have that chocolate. Okay, but let's move on to motivation. Sorry, we spoke about motivation. The one thing I want to touch on before we go on to actual results and transformation, just to give us an idea of where you are from that perspective, is I want to just get your sense of how important it is to have support and a supportive environment in getting to change your relationship with food. How did that go for you?
We are creatures of habit. We're not habit. We sorry, that's actually wrong. That's not what I want to say. We're social creatures. That's what I wanted to say. And when you're doing something, you do need validation, whether it's from a partner, whether it's from someone else. And when you get stuck, you need support. And that I did find we got. So every time I hit something, like, wow, this happened, is it normal? I could just reach out and have a chat to you, or quite often that something that was happening would then actually come up in the literature to, next week to say, you might have felt this and this and this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm not learning, I'm not losing it. This is normal.
Sure.
I specifically remember the incident with the water. Where I realized that suddenly I wasn't getting thirsty anymore as much. And it almost worried me. And I was sitting with it for a few days until I eventually told you, but Sean, I'm sitting here and I'm really trying to be good with my water, but I don't need it. Something's wrong. And you were saying, no, something's right. So it's really nice, rather than to sit and worry or think, or to be able to get the WhatsApp, send an email, pick up the phone and say, listen, I'm experiencing this. Am I crazy? Am I normal? Is it weird? Are we going the right way? And it's really also nice to be able to speak to people and to say, well, this happened, and did it happen to you? Or should this be happening to me? It's nice to have a shoulder to cry on when need be, or validation that you're actually doing it right and things are going the right way. So yes, having support in the process is extremely important. And this is going to sound funny, but sometimes it's nice to have support from other people who see you differently. Your husband or partner or family sees you in a certain way. And if you say or ask something, they might take it up in a certain way, which they have because that's their relationship with you. So it's nice to be able to speak to someone from the outside who sees the whole picture and who sees the whole program, and to say, no, it's normal that you're struggling. You're not being lazy or whatever. No, this is normal. Or no, let's work on this together, where you might not want to be able to tell your partner, I'm struggling. Sometimes weight is an issue, or bodies are an issue in relationships. So it's really nice to be able to speak to someone neutral or going through the same thing as you are, to get that type of support to say, yes, we're doing it right. Yes, we're not loony. And yes, we are winning. So yes, it was a big part.
Good. Yeah. And I mean, you went through our self-study portion, or way of doing the 12 weeks, because your program is just so hectic. It was impossible for you to join groups at specific times. So we got a time slot for you that worked once a week. And we worked together on the self-study way of doing this. So I'm just also saying that there are different ways of engaging with the 12 weeks and different levels of support depending on what people's requirements are. Now, what I want to do is thank you for sharing your experience with the program. That's fantastic. And I want to start talking about transformation and your experience and results and so forth. But before I do that, I want to share a photograph that you sent me. Okay, Janine, so this is the photograph that you sent on to me this morning, and this is a pretty recent photograph, and I just want to, wow, look at this, and the energy in here is just absolutely magnificent. Talk to us about this photograph. Where was this? Who's this wonderful character that's with you in the photograph? And it looks like you are determined to get to where you need to be. Talk to us about this.
So this was taken literally 3 days ago.
Okay. Yeah.
We do the sport of agility. That is little Danny. She's a border collie cross.
Yeah.
And she is fast as lightning.
And you've got to keep up, right?
Yes. So the sport of agility requires the handler and the dog to negotiate a course of jumps and obstacles of about average, so between 170 and 200 meters, average of 20 obstacles. You can see the tire, little jump in the back. There's also things like tunnels and dog walks and all these funny things. And you are required to do this as fast as possible. So that specific round was all of 34 seconds for
explosive power, sprinting.
Explosive power, yes. So you are running, she runs at about 4.7 meters a second, and I sometimes have to run a lot faster than that because I need to be on certain spaces of the track. So that's what we apparently do for fun.
So I'd hate to think what you do for when you want to exert yourself.
Okay, so yes, you need to be fit, but let's do some math here, because we are moving a certain weight over a certain distance in a certain time.
Yeah.
So there's quite a difference of moving 60 kilograms over 200 meters in between a half a minute and a minute, and moving 55 kilos over the same difference. So it's a lot easier. I'm not good at math, but I'm going to say it's roughly 10%. So in theory, I can be 10% faster because I have to move 10% less weight over the same area.
Yeah.
So that is why, number one, weight is important to me. And then number two, body composition, because I can't afford to lose a gram of muscle weight that I have gained over the last 4 years while training for agility.
Very, very important. Can I stop you there quickly? Because this
Yes.
is such an important point. Firstly, I want to resonate with you. I can't remember who it was, but it's one of the most prominent sprinter coaches in the world, coaches, Olympians, and that type of thing. And one of his sayings was, weight is the enemy of speed. That's it. Just that. Weight is the enemy of speed. And it's true, exactly what you're saying now. I mean, if just a 5 kilogram change in your weight, 10% is significant. It's a lot more for your body to move around. And then that's the one thing. So I agree with you 100% there. And then when we talk about body composition, is when we do, and you were alluding earlier to vegetarianism, which is very, very difficult to actually get enough of our essential amino acids or our proteins into our body. Very difficult to do that. And we can't build or retain our muscle mass while losing weight if we don't get enough protein into our system. So important. So sorry, I just wanted to just highlight that thing. And you mentioned this, but it's very important. So sorry, you continue, Janine. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, not at all. So this competition, as it was on Sunday, it was 3 days. And we ran various heats over the 3 days. And just on the class that we are in the moment, or the level we are at the moment, we ended up in a situation where often you had to run in the one ring, literally grab your doggy and go to the next run and run again.
Wow.
And normally you really, it's really nice to have some time to actually catch your breath and recuperate. And it just happened to have this weekend that I didn't have that luxury. Most of my rounds were run one ring, the other ring. And it was the weirdest feeling is that you would run, it would be 30 seconds to a minute, it's explosive, you give absolutely everything. And I'm going to say you're not tired, but you are not that badly out of breath. Your body doesn't feel sore. So even having...
you don't feel drained. It's like that drained, I can't do this again type thing. You can feel that you've been working out, but you're ready to go again.
You're ready to go. Yeah. And also, again, water came back into play. So you're not coming off the course desperately attacking the water bottle when you know that within the next 4 minutes or 5 minutes, you actually have to do it all again. And again, you don't want to have to drink the water. Yeah. So there was a definite change. I felt stronger. I was less fatigued. Water was less of an issue. So hydration was naturally better. And I'm quite happy to say we definitely hadn't lost any speed. I'm really happy with my performance on the weekend. We did really well. She was reserve champion in her class.
Wow, well done.
And mommy actually kept up. So, yeah.
Excellent.
So sport-wise, after the program, I'm really happy with what protein fueling has done. The three days wasn't that harsh. You're camping, you can see the tents. We're camping for 3 days in the elements and running on your feet the whole time. We're not eating great. So it was really nice to have all those reserves ready to go when I wasn't fueling it up properly while we were running. So, to be by Sunday to still feel human and do this was really nice.
Yeah. Amazing. And then you do horse riding as well, competitive horse riding. You alluded to that earlier to say that, and you also spoke about that now, is hydration and water. The fact that we most certainly focus on getting enough protein into our body to make sure our body is maintained properly. And if we can build a little bit of muscle mass, most certainly protect our muscle mass. And being fat fueled, which really is where the fueling and the hydration comes from, is the trick, isn't it? It's getting our body to actually start burning fat as a fuel, as our primary fuel, and doing that in an efficient manner. Because when we are sugar fueled, our body just isn't that good anymore at burning fat as a fuel. Now, talk to me about, after completing the program and seeing this amazing picture of you being in full flight, both of you, talk to me about how your life has changed in implementing this in a sustainable manner. What does it feel like? What are you looking forward to for well, many years still of being fat fueled, properly energized, having the vitality? What does that look like?
So it's really nice not to have to worry about food. So life's busy. We've got work, we've got stuff. I would die if I still have to go and meal prep. I cannot imagine standing on a whole Saturday or Sunday having to meal prep for 7 days or something. Who has the time for it? So at the moment, I'm loving the convenience. Food is just not an issue. I know that if and instinctively now I know what to eat. So I have my certain lunches, I have my certain suppers. I can judge how I'm feeling, whether I've had enough. So it's really nice just to be able to have lunch, have supper, off you go. And when you find you want to run the last kilometer home instead of just walking it, the energy is just there. It's not an issue. You don't have to think about it. And when you get home, I don't have this intense tiredness that I'm thinking that I'm so tired that I can't even make myself supper. So that's a big thing that has changed. I don't have that deathly feeling after I've trained, that the brain shut down and the body shut down, and I can't even do the little things, that you have to do, like eat. That is a big difference, and that just really makes my life easier, that it's one less thing to worry about. And then obviously with 3-day competitions, to not feel that tired, to not get home and be so tired and having to prepare for the next day and then just say, no, I'm not going to eat, I'm too tired. That falls away. And because I did do a little meal prep, but I took my right food to the competition. So you feel through the whole process, yes, we had a hard day. I'm not particularly sore. I'm not particularly tired. And I'm feeling great for tomorrow morning, because three days, it's a lot. So I'm looking forward to the fact that I now know what to do. And let's, for argument's sake, say I do fall off the wagon and I attack all the Easter bunnies and things. I now feel comfortable that I know exactly what to do to fix it. And I don't have to go through a lot of effort to go back on a diet or whatever. I just have to fall back into what my body wants. And I also know that if I really, really battle, I can pick up the phone and say, Sean, we need to revisit. We need to go back onto program. Can we check in for the next 4 weeks? I need a little bit of support. But I, for the first time, feel that I actually know how to manage food. As I said, I've always been slim. I modeled as a young lady. And you've always had this thing about food, and you knew a little bit here and you knew a little bit there, but you never knew enough that you can say, right, let's just fix this. And for the first time in my life, I feel that I now know how to fix this. I know what to do. I know how to sustain it. And if for some reason I didn't sustain it, I know what is my quick fix, if I can call it that. And the quick fix is go back to what your body needs. And for the first time, I know what my body needs.
Wonderful. That is so empowering. A lot of people actually talk about being liberated from food, from not knowing what food actually does to your body. Is that liberation is taking back control, having control. And I think that's what you are talking to.
And it is liberating because you're not following rules. It's not because someone said you have to eat that and someone said you have to eat that.
You make up your own.
100%.
You make up your own rules as you go along. This is what works for
Exactly.
me, and this is what I'll do. Absolutely. One last question about your transformation. If you had to think about one specific piece of information or a realization, an unexpected benefit of doing this program, one thing, what would that be?
I have so many light bulb moments. It's really hard to just pick one thing. You know what? I, for the first time, experienced that food and living with your own body doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be rules. We were created perfectly in all our systems in balance, and somewhere along the line we lost that. So I think the biggest thing I took out of the system is to actually get back to how we should function and how we can function. You know, you always think that we are imperfect because my weight is never right. I never have enough energy. Brain's never sharp enough. So I learned that we actually have been created perfectly, and that the world out there has been cheating us and poisoning us with all these weird things that it says is good for us and whatever. And if you can just get back to a point where you can listen to your body, you will be healthy and happy, and it won't be hard. It would just be life.
Yeah.
You eat, you live, you're happy.
Amazing.
So that is the biggest thing I would take away from this.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely amazing. And you touch on something that sparks a thought with me now as well, is I love saying to people that we don't always appreciate what a marvelous machine our bodies are. We don't. We carry on a day-to-day basis, just expecting our bodies to serve us. Doesn't matter what we do to it. And if we'd only get out of the way of our bodies and just allow our bodies to heal itself. We're always thinking of supplementation. What can we add? What can we supplement? What medicines can we take? What vitamins can we take? How can we better our bodies by adding to it? And the magic is our bodies actually want us to subtract. Take away the stuff that's poisoning our bodies. And if it's not natural, it's probably poisoning your body. And if we start taking that away, getting out of the way of our bodies will heal itself. It's the most amazing thing. It's the same as getting a little cut or a graze on your skin. You don't do anything about it. Only thing you do is you stop cutting it. You stop grazing it. Just leave it, and it's going to heal. And the same happens with all the systems in our bodies. 99% of people out there, I just made up that stat, by the way. 99% of people out there just actually needs to get out of the way of their bodies and just feed it with the food it needs, as natural as possible. And that's the answer, I think, in a nutshell. Now, I want to ask you, Janine, what is the one piece of advice that you would give somebody considering taking back control of their health? What is the one thing that you would say to people that they need to do?
Start today. Don't wait for Monday.
Yeah.
Start today. Don't wait for Monday.
Yeah.
It's easy to say it's Easter weekend. It's easy to say it's Wednesday. It's easy to say there's a big thing at work. So I get that. And I get the mental aspect is very important. But knowing what I know now, I would say start today. Get that relationship going with you. You know, we meditate. We go inside. We want to learn who we are. But learn what your body is. Learn who you are that way. And I never knew it because I was lucky. I was lucky. I never had to learn who my body was and what my body needed. And I got away with it, and I was relatively healthy. But if you and your body are not having a great relationship, don't wait. Start now and find out what's happening and see what you can do together. And if there's after that something left that you need medical help for, by all means, go for it, get it sorted. But yeah, life is short. You can't battle with brain fog and funny things. You want to go live life. So start today is what I would figure it out.
Yeah, this another thing this triggers with me now, what you are saying, and thank you for that. I think it's absolutely profound, is the relationship that we have with our bodies is complex, and sometimes we tend to be judgmental. We look in the mirror and we go, very judging around it. And what you are saying is rather, and the saying is, and this is where I want to bring it to the conversation, is rather than being judgmental, be curious. Be curious. Just ask questions and you'll find the answers. Speak to people that actually have good questions to ask, that are also curious, that want to make a difference. And if you're curious enough, you'll find a way to take back control. This is about mastering metabolic health. We can, but it's important to be curious and not judgmental. Judgmentalism doesn't take us anywhere. Be curious about our bodies and find out. So, which is really cool. Okay. Last question, if you don't mind, is what habits or tips did you find most beneficial during your journey? What were the things that you implemented that you felt made the biggest impact on your health journey?
So in one of the weeks, there's a self-study piece on hunger. And that I found really enlightening. So they taught us about the types of hunger and why you get hungry, and also what the solution for every type of hunger is. And that was actually the first conversation I had with my body, because I didn't get hungry. And it sounds weird to say you didn't get hungry. Yes, we get hungry, but not hungry in a way where it was a conversation or a signal to tell me that I need this or I need that. I used to fast. So you would say you have to fast until 12 o'clock because that's what the hours say. And here I learned, you can, if you're listening to what your body's saying about when you're hungry, if you don't eat until you're hungry, you end up fasting without having to call it intermittent fasting at all, making it very difficult. By listening to your body, you naturally fall into these rhythms. So that was an interesting bit to me, to say that the hunger and what it means. And that started the conversation I had with my body to learn the rest of the things. Great
insight. And thank you for bringing up fasting. We haven't even spoken about fasting yet. And I find that when I speak to people about fasting and telling them that part of this program is intermittent fasting, we incorporate intermittent fasting, people are, okay, fasting.
Sounds scary.
Yeah, it sounds very scary. I'm going to deprive myself of nutrients. I'm going to go hungry. This is going to be very, very, very challenging. And then I kind of just smile and say, okay, you need to have a bit of faith in the process. We are not going to make you suffer because we actually want you to do this in a sustainable manner. And can you expand a little bit about the fasting, how you would do fasting prior to doing this program and how you view fasting now?
Fasting is scary. It's always been scary. So my first introduction to fasting was actually 5-day water fasting or 5-day juice fasting.
Okay.
Which is 100% a process of mental, it's draining. It's constantly, I will not eat. I'm hungry, I will not eat. I will walk past the kitchen, I will not eat.
5 long days.
It is difficult. It is really not fun. So then we moved to intermittent fasting because it sounded easier. But that also is scary because you get to this point where you're like, you have to stop at 7 tonight. You can't eat until 12. You wake up in the morning, sometimes you just really need something to get going. And it was all very mental and very hard. It was self-discipline, probably. It's probably one of the hardest things I've had to do discipline-wise would be to fast, whether it's a long fast or whether even intermittent fasting. It becomes hard. And I always had this thing about your fasting in the back of my head, and I was thinking, which week is this now going to hit me? Because my body knows fasting is hard. And where is it? Week 6 or week 7?
Week 6.
This beautiful lady on the YouTube thing just says, "Don't so tomorrow, just only eat when you're hungry." And then the penny dropped. I hadn't been eating until 11:30 anyway, because I eat when I'm hungry. And then I realized suddenly the body has been fed optimally to a point where it doesn't need to eat first thing in the morning. It can quite happily last to 11:30, 12. And then I found, and that was one of my other light bulb moments. I absolutely loved it because I do love the concept of fasting, and I know people are scared of it. And suddenly I thought, you guys are clever. You had trained the body to fast without telling my mind that I'm fasting. So when the word fast came up in the program for the first time, it wasn't an issue anymore because the body was already doing it for the last 3 weeks. So when the brain suddenly realized, oh, I'm fasting, the body's like, nah, I've got this. So I really like the way that you introduce fasting. And I think it's the easiest way into fasting that I've ever experienced. And it was really cool because it kept the mental scariness of what you're doing out of it. Because by that stage, you already felt what it does to your body, and you've already been doing it anyway. So I thought that was really clever. I really like that.
Yeah, fasting is not to be feared, and the important thing is to eat the right foods again. You know, it is difficult to fast when you are a sugar burner.
Hungry.
Constantly hungry. But now, if you've got enough nutrients in your system and you're fueled by fat, your brain just goes, "No, got this, no problem. We're just going to be hungry a little bit later."
That's all we're hungry.
Yeah, amazing.
And you're not hungry. You're literally not hungry. So you do not have to use the brain power to say, suppress the hunger. Have your morning tea. It's nice and comfortable. And in my case, I could even have it with cream because I needed the fat, which was decadent. So, you know, how do you put these two together? I'm having this decadent breakfast tea, but I'm intermittent fasting. It worked. The brain was quite happy, and if the brain is happy, the body can do exactly what it needs to do.
Wonderful closing statement. Thank you very much, Janine. This has been a wonderful conversation with you and sharing your experience. If you want to hear more of these conversations, please subscribe to our channel. And also, if you want to reach out, put some comments in the comments section below. 16 Hours for Life is a 12-week program where we advocate eating natural, healthy foods. We prioritize protein. We go very, very low with the carbohydrates, and we make sure that the body is fat fueled. If you are interested in taking back control of your body and your health, if you want to master your metabolism, then reach out to us. And thank you very much for joining us. And Janine, once again, thank you very much. It's been an absolute blast speaking to you. It was wonderful working with you, and it really is a treat to see how you are implementing the principles of the program and fueling your body for explosive performance. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.